What's up, everybody? Welcome. NFL Preseason DFS picks, FanDuel DraftKings' lineup advice, Friday, August 20th. Two-game slate tonight on both sites. I'm Brian Jester, co-founder here at Occupy Fantasy. Moose is on the ground for us. He's at the Cincinnati Washington game, so we're bringing in our NFL writer Chris Rooney at RooneyFFB with the new Twitter name, by the way, on Twitter. Chris, what's up, dude?
Brian, first show of the new football year together. Happy to be here talking about a preseason football slate on a Friday night in the middle of the summer. Boy, what losers are we, huh?
Listen, man, I got nothing better to do. I'm here to watch fourth stringers play all night and all weekend. So I'm sure everyone watching is feeling the same way. Moose is gone, right? So that means I'm running the technical duties of this show. So if something seems off, volume, audio, anything, let us know in the chat, and we'll get that corrected. So we're here till about 7:30 p.m. Eastern. The two-game slate tonight starts at 8 p.m. Eastern. Two games. We do have one showdown slate, Kansas City and Arizona. And yeah, the daily plug is up on OccupyFantasy.com. Goes to the top plays, lineup strategies, everything you need to be profitable for tonight's NFL preseason slate. The plug has been absolutely crushing it. A lot of our members have been taking down big prizes on both FanDuel and DraftKings. So, Chris, we talked about it in the plug, and Moose and I talked about it a bit last night, but some of these smaller slates so far, we saw it last night. We saw it with the two-gamer last week, the Hall of Fame game. Very chalky outcomes as a lot of the top plays around the industry end up being pretty similar, and they've all crushed on these smaller slates so far tonight. And I think, you and I have talked a little bit before the show that we think a lot of the top plays tonight from us are going to be similar to a lot of other people's top plays, which should be some condensed ownership.
And that's the reality, I think, Brian, right? Of when not just us, but everybody is sort of looking at the exact same information to research a slate, and you only have, last night 2 teams playing, or tonight 4 teams playing. Frankly, there's enough time for the people that can make the time to research these things to get their hands around a two game slate or a 1 game slate. Tomorrow, where we have like 7 or 8 games going, and people are just realizing, oh, I better figure that out, might be a much better opportunity to find some edges that people may have missed. Kind of like what you did last week when, for some reason, we were kind of the only people that were very, very high on Raiders quarterback Nathan Peterman. So I know we're excited about tomorrow night. Let's deal with tonight first. Obviously, we have the Bengals and the football team here, and the Chiefs and the Cardinals. I think everybody can see kind of the cover player we have here on the daily plug tonight. I mean, I think the situation that we feel the best about is this Bengals running game. Brian, I don't know if you want to recap for everybody why exactly that is here.
Yeah, and I think, again, this is another reason why, especially we see this in week 2 and week 3, sometimes week 4 of preseason, where top play ownership condenses even more because now we have one more data point. In fact, we have one single data point to consider, which is last week's playing time. And everyone saw Chris Evans and Jock Patrick get the majority of the playing time. They did really well. Their ownership wasn't nearly what it should have been last week as we were out ahead of it. But now everyone knows that. Travion Williams out once again. These two guys will be very, very popular, both Cincinnati running backs. You can play them together. We got that question before. Yeah, I think everyone knows that they're top place tonight. So now we have to figure out where the differentiation is. Let's see in the chat. We got Mr. Miyagi. What's up? BP1 just joined our YouTube membership, which gets you access to our Discord channel, occupyfantasy.com/Discord. BP1, follow those instructions. If you have any issues, hit us up on email or DM us. We'll get you straightened away. Ken's in the chat. Mojo's in the chat. What's up, guys? If you have questions, throw them in the chat. We're here for 20, 30 minutes. You guys will drive this show. Any questions you have about tonight's slate, we will answer them. But yeah, Chris, to that point, I have no problem giving away some top plays on these shows when they're very well known. I think it's not a surprise, right? Like, to be fair, I thought that was the case with Nathan Peterman last week on Saturday's show, and I thought everyone would have him, and he was 2% known. So maybe I'm wrong here, but Chris, Moose, and I touched on it a little bit. The fact that there's only 3 preseason games this year compared to the 4 of years past, we don't have defined definitive trends from some of these coaches, and no one, it seems like this week, Chris, is talking about how much they're going to play their starters, which makes it a bit of a guessing game.
Yeah, we are used historically to seeing a quote-unquote dress rehearsal game from these teams, at least at one point in the preseason, and for a lot of teams in the past, that was week 3 of the 4-week preseason, but the talk of that here has been very sparse, to your point. We're not expecting a lot of time out of any starters for any of these 4 teams tonight, except for one. The one team that has guaranteed their starters are going to see the field, and sort of the high end here has been potentially the whole half, is the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, I know you and I were talking about this privately. Let's bring that conversation here to the show. People have been looking at sort of things Andy Reid has said in the past about playing time with his starters, but how he's sort of been, to be kind to Andy Reid and say he's not flat out lying, he's been a little, he's exaggerated a little on the playing time. I believe last week he told us about a quarter for Patrick Mahomes and the starters. Mahomes played 4 plays. 2019, a little bit of a similar routine in games. He was a little overly optimistic on starter playing time. But tonight, right, we have a situation where, like we've been saying, everybody kind of has the same top plays tonight, and these Chiefs starters, who potentially, according to Andy Reid, could play up to a half, might actually be lower owned tonight. So I think that's an opportunity here.
I do too, and we got a question in the chat from Sam H. Thoughts on Mahomes? Is it worth fading him? You know, when the news first came out that they were going to play a half, very available news, I thought, well, Mahomes is going to be the most popular quarterback on the slate. However, anything you read about this, no one believes that. Beat reporters don't believe it. Other industry sites don't believe it. So I don't think Mahomes is going to be that popular. So I think he's actually a fantastic tournament play because everyone's going to be playing Chris Strebler, it sounds like, the Arizona quarterback, who's probably going to play a half, maybe more, played more than a half last week. A running quarterback, small slate, guaranteed playing time. I think people will play him. So, Chris, to that point, I think Chiefs starters, they probably play 2 series, maybe a quarter, maybe more.
Yeah.
But if Andy Reid's not lying and we get a half of football from the best offense in football on a slate where no one's really playing them, that could flip the entire slate over.
And we know how explosive these guys are. So, it's certainly a great high risk move here. Not necessarily advocating it in low risk contests anywhere tonight that you could be playing, but love the opportunity for the Chiefs in tournaments. I guess the one exception there potentially could be Travis Kelce, just because the tight end position is such a joke on this slate. And obviously, it's only going to take like 1 or 2 really strong plays from Travis Kelce if he plays long enough to be the optimal tight end tonight.
Yep, exactly. So we got some other questions in the chat. Jake says, how many snaps did Keyshawn Johnson get with Strebler last week? So Keyshawn played 3/4 of the game last week. We had him as our top overall receiver. He was less than 10% owned, and he got some incredible exercise in during that game. Didn't get very many targets. He played about a quarter with Strebler. Keyshawn started the game. He played with Colt McCoy through halftime. When Strebler came in, Keyshawn stayed in the game. Halftime happened. Well, okay, Keyshawn's time's probably done. Wrong. Keyshawn comes out for the second half, plays with Strebler some more. Once the fourth quarter hit and the next unit came in, the third unit came in, that's when Keyshawn left the game. So about a quarter. I don't know if Keyshawn plays the same amount of time tonight. We do have him as a high-risk play. But I think you could probably expect about a quarter, but maybe less. Those other guys we have listed for Arizona we think play a little bit more than Keyshawn tonight, at least with Strebler, who's one of our top plays. Speaking of Arizona receivers, Chris, Franco has a question. Rondale Moore, Arizona, he thinks that's a solid play. Chris, I know you were watching the game last week. They literally force-fed this guy multiple targets and rushing attempts in like the first couple of series of the game.
Yeah, it felt like they gave him like 5 touches like right away. And I think it's just you and I, because obviously you just recapped it. We were very heavy on Keyshawn. We were like, well, this sucks. I think Rondale is obviously a prized commodity in this Cardinals offense, and they're going to want to get him ready to go up to speed for the regular season, which is just a couple of weeks away. I would expect similar stuff out of him tonight. The only difference really is that he'll probably be more popular on this slate. So good low risk wide receiver, but something to think about if you're playing some of these larger field tournaments is that might be a spot where you are better off trying to be different tonight.
Yeah, because if he gets, we saw his average depth of target was potentially negative. I don't know off the top of my head what it was, Chris, but it was all around the line of scrimmage. So even if he gets a couple catches and converts them into some yards, and he gets 4 catches, 20 yards, that's 6 points. That's a great outing, and that might be enough to get there. But any of these other Arizona receivers catches a touchdown, they outscore him. So definitely an interesting pivot for tournaments. Let's see here. Sway Mac has a question. He's asking about Showdown, Chris. And as I asked this question,
Okay.
7:10. We're here for 20 more minutes or so. Be sure to check the plug for any updates. I don't think anything is coming in just yet, so I think we're fine there. But Sway's asking, with the Mahomes news, unsure how much he's going to play, right? If we're playing low-risk Showdown lineups, which we've talked about in the plug since the Hall of Fame game, Chris, would you opt for Mahomes in low risk or one of these running backs? Because there's a dilemma there too. Because Kansas City is playing a bunch of running backs, Arizona has a decent amount of running backs. What are you thinking there?
Running backs are when they get in the game, they're probably going to get some touches. There's a pretty good chance they're not going to give you a straight up zero. There is a risk that Mahomes has a couple of 3-and-outs and then he's done for the night. So it might not feel comfortable. It definitely doesn't feel comfortable. But I think as a general rule, regardless of whether it's Patrick Mahomes or Joe Flacco last night or Jalen Hurts, who ended up not playing at all, the running backs are going to be slightly safer just because they tend to fall forward and at least get you a couple points here. I know that's not the sexiest answer, but I tend to lean towards these running backs when we don't know guaranteed playing time for quarterbacks in low risk.
I think that's fair. That's totally fair. Speaking of running backs, Mr. Miyagi is asking thoughts on the football team's running back committee. Chris, I don't know if it's really much of a secret, right? Jarrett Patterson, he balled out in preseason week 1. I think everyone thinks he's a good play tonight based on his usage. So I don't think it's any secret, right? And in fact, let's talk about it. There are 3 very clear-cut running backs tonight. The 2 Bengals running backs, Jarrett Patterson. So, Chris, any thoughts outside of that, right? Clearly, Patterson is the best play of the Washington group, but they still have Antonio Gibson who's starting, Peyton Barber, J.D. McKissick. They did cut Lamar Miller, but they also have Jonathan Williams there as well. So, are you considering anybody else outside of Patterson? And secondly, do you think he's as good of a play as I do?
I do think he's as good of a play as you do. I think, he's an undrafted free agent, and this is the time of the year to figure out whether those guys belong on your team for longer than just training camp in the preseason. He's pretty much the one guy on the roster that kind of fits the bill there. Some of the beat writers for the football team have already sort of started releasing their 53-man roster projections. I know you mentioned Jonathan Williams, but at least in one article I read, and I'm sorry, I forget exactly who the source was. I believe it's whoever writes for The Athletic about the football team. They have Jonathan Williams on the outside looking in. They think Jarrett Patterson is going to make this team. So, I think he's the one that sees a lot more work tonight. The only place that might be slightly more intriguing for high risk is Antonio Gibson or pass catching specialist J.D. McKissick. If these first stringers for the football team play a little bit longer than they did against the Patriots last week, and it's kind of a similar situation to the Chiefs that we talked about a few minutes ago, where they could easily find themselves into the optimal lineup if they have themselves a couple of efficient drives here. So I think Patterson, in addition to those 2 Bengals running backs, Chris Evans and Jack Patrick, are overall the best running back plays on the entire slate. But you have to like Antonio Gibson as a high-risk pivot off of Patterson for sure.
You know what, Chris? As you say that, we should probably add him to the plug, and I might add him to some of my lineups because that makes a ton of sense. Because I think J.P. Finley, reporter for the football team, came out about 30 minutes ago, and he said he thinks Fitzpatrick and the starters get about a quarter, maybe a little bit longer. And on a 2-game slate, that could certainly be enough work for Antonio Gibson to get 6-7 points.
And that's in addition to, by the way, we shouldn't just move on without mentioning this. Like literally every teammate, pretty much anybody that has been interviewed around the football team about Antonio Gibson has been trying to tell us, oh, he's going to be Christian McCaffrey this year.
Yep.
So, if he's going to play for a quarter, let's see if that actually materializes here.
Yeah, would we play CMC in a quarter of action on a 2-game slate? We probably would. So let's at least consider it. So let's update the plug with that. So
I
let me see
I'm
here.
in there now doing that for you.
Okay, sweet. Thank you, Chris. So while Chris does that, just a quick reminder, we're here till 7:30. We're going to be live again tomorrow, an hour before lock. Large slate tomorrow. That's where you'll get a lot of your questions in. Tons to digest. That's where our big edges are, so make sure you tune in for that. The Daily Plug, what you see on the screen here, occupyfantasy.com, ranks our top plays, gives you lineup strategies for all contest types, and detailed playing time notes and expectations for every single team on the slate. We also have the Occupy Fantasy lineup builder, which I'm bringing up now. The top plays from the Daily Plug are loaded directly into the builder, denoted by the dice and $ symbols to note low risk and high risk plays. Build up to 150 lineups. So be sure to use that as well. Let's see. Ken, very good question here. The max amount of players you're playing from one team, 4 or 5. FanDuel, the max you can do is 4. DraftKings lets you do a few more than that. So I think 4 still probably. Chris, if you played a single game last night and they let you, you could have had like 9 Patriots, right, in the optimal lineup because none of the Eagles players did anything.
Yeah, it was like Kenneth Gainwell for the Eagles was like the 7th or 8th best player on the entire slate. So as long as you basically played every Patriots running back, the defense, and I think Cam Newton or Jacoby Myers, like that was basically what you needed last night. Could have that happen here tonight. So, if one of these teams is super successful, you have another 35-0 type game, maybe you will want 4 or more players from the same team. Me personally, I think I'm drawing the line at 3 is the most that I'll play from one team. It allows me to get a little, it just allows me to do what I want to do tonight. I'll put it that way.
I think that's fair. Yeah, I have mine set at 4, but again, it's personal preference there. The max I would do is 4 though, just to answer that question. Let's see. AB Smooth, what's up? AB says, would it be smart to just plug in whichever defense is facing the least amount of offensive players in my lineup? I think that's fine. That's probably one way to go about it. Chris, the other thing we see here with defenses in the preseason is that somehow ownership gets condensed even in that position, and we see like 25% owned defenses on an 8-game slate. We're going to see a 50% owned defense tonight probably in Washington. So to me, I like playing low-owned defenses in preseason. Teams that have poor offensive lines, teams that are playing some scrub quarterbacks, or just from a game theory perspective, right? You're playing tournaments, played against the highest owned quarterback. So Chris Strebler is going to be the highest owned quarterback tonight. Maybe we play Kansas City. Maybe we play Kansas City's defense. I don't know if you have any extra thoughts on that.
Yeah, and don't shy away. I know like this is like the one time of year where we will say this. You can play a defense that is like negatively correlated with other plays in your lineup. It happens here in preseason, especially because the skill players aren't necessarily going to play the whole game. One example, and this is no secret, you just kind of hit on it. We love the Bengals running backs tonight. A lot of people are probably going to play both of them. And then a lot of people are probably also going to play the Washington defense. So stuff like that is totally fine tonight. I do think Washington is the best play. Probably the next best place to go is Kansas City. Believe they are, if you care about such things in preseason, I believe they are favored tonight against Arizona. So Kansas City is probably the next best place to go. And if they're going to be significantly lower owned than Washington, they might even be the best play.
Yeah, exactly. And just a note on that. We get a lot of questions about, can I play these 2 running backs in the same lineup? Can I play a defense against an offensive player? We have to break our brains a little bit for NFL preseason, especially these smaller slates, just because, the playing time is so fractured that a lot of times the normal correlation we see in a regular season game just doesn't happen in a preseason game, which is why we don't game stack like we do in the regular season, which is why it's okay to play a defense against some of your offensive players. So if you have a question about, can I do this with my lineup, the odds are it's probably okay in NFL preseason because half the time the anti-correlation or negative correlation, whatever it may be, may not even be on the field at the same time. So just keep that in mind if you have questions about that. So, all right, 7:18. Chris, there hasn't really been any jarring pregame news, right? We always look to pregame news to give us an edge. We got that last Saturday when Travion Williams was ruled out late, and that's how we got Jock Patrick at 1% ownership. It doesn't look like we're getting much tonight, though.
No, I mean the one thing, and obviously we got our old friend Lucas here helping us out, looking for some news. I mean, a lot of people are talking about Puka Williams with Cincinnati tonight. He didn't play last week. He is listed on the depth chart as a wide receiver. As a running back. You seem to be pretty confident that he's more of a gadget type player based off of the research you've done here, Brian. Got some beat writers that hope he gets the ball any way possible tonight, but we don't really think Puka is going to be a threat to the workload in that Cincinnati backfield tonight, right?
I don't think so. And we've seen it's been a consistent theme. I never thought we would be considering this much. But we saw it with the Cleveland player last week. We've seen it with Philadelphia and Adrian Killings. We see it tonight with Puka Williams. There's Trenton Cannon with Carolina. We see these guys who are listed at running back on the depth chart, but all the beat reporters are very clear that these guys have converted to wide receiver. They're exclusively playing wide receiver in camp. There are some sites out there that say these converted players may steal touches away from the running backs. It's not happening. These guys are receivers, and I think that that falls in line with Puka Williams tonight. Maybe he gets a carry out of the backfield or a jet sweep or something, but it seems very clear he's a receiver and, like you said, Chris, not really a threat to Chris Evans or Jock Patrick's playing time. What you see on screen here, by the way, I do have it up. You'll see the blue text from the Daily Plug. These are updates we make after the Daily Plug is initially posted in the afternoon. These pregame updates are important. Again, nothing too crazy today. The one update we do have, and again, I don't mind sharing this because it's not a slate altering. I say this now, but maybe it is. Mitchell Wilcox is out. He played half the snaps at tight end for Cincinnati in week 1. Thaddeus Moss did play about half as well. And Mitchell Wilcox took away 2 targets. So with Wilcox out, Moss should theoretically get more playing time. Hopefully more usage in the passing game. Makes Moss one of the top high-risk tight ends on the slate. Okay, let's see. Speaking of tight ends, N19 is asking our thoughts on tonight's tight ends, and they're mostly trash. Chris, if you want to give, let's just, I'll ask you, right? We'll give away something. Who's your favorite tight end play tonight?
It's Travis Kelce, and I know that is like great. You're picking the starter for the Kansas City Chiefs, but we've seen it for the better part of the last half decade plus, just how explosive this player is. Patrick Mahomes likes to throw the ball literally half the time to either Travis Kelce or Tyreek Hill. I think we can get, at least 1 or 2 receptions for Travis Kelce tonight, and that literally might be the best on the entire slate tonight. Other places you can go are still on the Kansas City Chiefs. Jody Fortson is a converted wide receiver. He's a wide receiver only play on DraftKings, but on FanDuel he is tight end eligible. And I want to say that he had an incredible amount of opportunity last game playing with multiple units for the Chiefs. And they also have a rookie that they drafted, Noah Gray, who could also be a pretty strong play tonight. He played a lot of snaps, ran a lot of routes, just didn't necessarily do anything in the box score to write home about. So I guess we are kind of honed in on these Kansas City plays. And then the other one that we would consider tonight is Cincinnati's Thad Moss, who is sort of the last man standing in that duo that you were just talking about because Wilcox won't be playing tonight.
Good stuff, Chris. Yeah, all great points. Good in-depth info there. Just got a message from Moose, by the way, who we said at the top of the show is at the Cincinnati game. He is confirming for us. We have boots on the ground. Puka Williams is exclusively running routes with receivers in pregame warm-ups. Come on, guys. Where are you getting this kind of in-depth information? Where are you getting this inside information? Thank you, Moose. If you see Puka Williams take a running back carry tonight, everyone at Moose on Twitter tomorrow or in Discord, because it's his fault. And he gave us bad information. But that should tell you Puka Williams is exclusively a wide receiver. Shouldn't impact Evans and Patrick, as we said a couple minutes ago. So, Sway Max is good stuff, guys. See you guys later. Hey, appreciate it, Sway. See you next time. Ken's asking, any preference on Chiefs wide receivers, Chris? Hill, Hardman, Pringle, Robinson. All these guys played like 5 snaps last week. They're going to rotate and play with the starters tonight with Mahomes. I guess Tyreek, right, Chris? Just because he's the most explosive of the group? I don't know.
If nobody's playing him, which is kind of the sense that we have with these Chiefs starters, then it probably would have to be Tyreek if we're focused on just that group, Ken. There are, a lot of wide receivers on this Chiefs team that will be playing tonight. They have a ton on the roster. We do have one in particular that is a favorite on, the deeper side of the depth chart that's listed as a top play, low risk for the Chiefs in Reese Fountain there. So we do like him the best based off of the trends from last week. Should mention, by the way, just to kind of dovetail off of that, and I know we've probably mentioned it on other shows, but we haven't necessarily spoken about it tonight. We have, the preseason usage data here on OccupyFantasy.com for everyone to look at. I believe that is one of the free sections of the website, right, Brian? People can access the preseason data and look at this stuff themselves if they want to do some research.
Yep, which I have up on screen here. Snap data back to 2019, target data for this year, opportunity data for this year. Easy in one place to see all the usage data for preseason all in one spot. So go check that out. And Moose is in the chat and he says, "Hey," so Moose got the shout out. So thank you, Moose, for your service at the Washington game. I did have one more thing I wanted to talk about. Oh, let's bring up the lineup builder really quickly, Chris. I'm just thinking this out loud as you were talking about the Chiefs receivers. If you're using a lineup builder, ideally you're using our lineup builder tonight, but if you're not, I like this idea, Chris, because we know that the lineup builder, no matter which one you're using, will not know to do this automatically. But those Chiefs receivers, right? If you're just mixing up receivers, there's a real chance that you get Tyreek and Pringle in a lineup. There's a real chance you get Hardman and Demarcus Robinson in the same lineup. But Chris, right, there's no reason to have multiple of those guys in the same lineup without Patrick Mahomes, right? Because if they go off, it's because Patrick Mahomes, if multiple go off, it's because Patrick Mahomes is playing longer. So to me, I'm going to make a rule, or I already have made a rule, max of one, Tyreek, DeMarcus, Byron, Mecole, when Mahomes is not in the lineup. That way we don't get any rogue multiple Chiefs starters, receivers lineups that have no shot of winning without Mahomes at quarterback.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. I mean, like you said, maybe to phrase it another way, so if people kind of miss the point here, if more than one of those Chiefs starting pass catchers, you probably should include Travis Kelce in that group.
Yes.
Go off, then that means Mahomes is probably one of the better quarterbacks tonight. So I like where your head is at there.
Cool. And I'm just showing this up in the builder, right? So everyone knows what's going on.
And we have a very profound confirmation, thanks to Lucas, that Kyler Murray is in uniform tonight. So he's in uniform. So there you go.
Cool. I mean, for those of you who listen, Colin Murray is not about the preseason. I don't know how much he's going to play tonight, but Chris was very adamant about he did not want to play in the preseason.
His quote was like literally something along the lines of, yeah, I mean, whatever. It's not real. Doesn't matter. Which is probably, frankly, pretty close to how most fans feel about this and how most coaches feel about the preseason as well. We all obviously love talking about these games, but it just feels like the trend in general right now is that more emphasis within these football teams is placed on the joint practices. So that's why we see more and more work for some of these future street free agents here.
Yes, exactly. New member BP1 says, no love for Vipers Reese Horn. BP1, he was released this week. He's no longer on the roster, so don't play him. He will not be on Cincinnati's team tonight, so don't play him. Chris, as we're waiting for any final questions, 3 minutes left, we got a question from Trey. And since you're the redraft guy here, I'm going to ask you this question. In redraft, half-point PPR, could you rank these following running backs, 1 through 7? Sanders, CEH, Carson, Davis, Swift, Henderson, Montgomery. It's a lot of names, Chris. So give me your 2 favorite running backs and your 2 least favorite running backs from that group.
I think my 2 favorites, and this would be in order right now, would be Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I'm just looking at his list as well. And Miles Sanders. I think those 2 are probably the safest locks for the most work on their teams this upcoming season. A lot of pessimism, particularly with Sanders lately, due to early kind of reports that he was splitting touches pretty evenly with Boston Scott in training camp and in practices. But it looks like in this recent week of work, especially with the Patriots making the trip up to Philadelphia for joint practices, that Sanders has started to see basically all of the first team touches for the Eagles. Yet you see his average draft position on best ball sites like Underdog Fantasy or even on DraftKings, who offers those tournaments now. He's been going in like the 4th or 5th round, which just feels really criminal to me right now. So those are absolutely my 2 favorite in that group. You wanted my 2 least favorite. He's got Mike Davis in there, and I do like Mike Davis. I think I'm going to say that of those 7, he is my least favorite just because I don't think any of us truly expect the Atlanta Falcons to be very good this year. And I don't think he necessarily has a true lock on that role. We don't see on the roster currently a lot of competition for his touches, but I mean, they didn't exactly invest a ton of money in Mike Davis. So I would not want to be trusting Mike Davis as one of my 2 running backs, in a redraft fantasy football league right now. I like him as like an upside 3rd piece or something like that. But of that group, he's probably the one I'm the most concerned of.
Good stuff. Thanks, Trey, for the question. A couple questions about Jonathan Ward in the chat. Arizona running back, banged up last week. He did return to practice. Lucas got confirmation about 15 minutes ago. Jonathan Ward is in uniform. He will be playing tonight. So all systems go for Jonathan Ward. Thanks for that question, Brian. Chris, final question. Are we getting a live before lock show for KBO tonight?
Are we getting live before lock? What time is lock tonight? You know what? I just answered your question. If I'm asking you what time lock is, that means no. We're not doing a show tonight.
No, yeah. Those days are far, far gone. Summer 2020 vibes, KBO. Thankfully, no more 3 a.m. wake-up calls, which was miserable, although profitable. So appreciate everyone joining us tonight. Again, any final updates will be made to the Daily Plug, OccupyFantasy.com. We'll try to tweet out any relevant news. I don't think there's going to be any at this time with 30 minutes left before lock, but you never know. So follow us on Twitter at OccupyFantasy. Follow Chris for dad jokes and football takes at RooneyFFB. Follow me at BrianJesterFF. Appreciate everyone listening. OccupyFantasy.com is where you can get all the information for NFL preseason DFS. Again, we're going to go live again tomorrow, so make sure you subscribe to the channel, get notified when we go live. Give us a thumbs up. That helps us out tremendously. We appreciate that. Any questions you have, you can join our Discord channel. Click the join button below the video, OccupyFantasy.com/Discord. Thanks for everyone for listening. For Chris, I'm Brian. Good luck tonight.